Hey everybody, I have a question for you. What makes you happy? What makes you really, really happy? I don't know if you've noticed, but we're not very good as a human race at attaining the things that we're chasing. So today, we're going to talk about what happens in this space and how what happens here can actually increase your happiness factor. So stick around and we'll talk about it. My name is Vince, and we're excited you're here tuning in with us today as we are in part 3 of Chasing Joy. But before we get to that, we would love to connect with you, and the best way to do that is simply scan the QR code or fill out the form next to the stream and take a moment to tell us about yourself. If it's your first time with us, let me just say we're super excited you decided to join us today. Now, whether you're new or newer around here, or you've been around for a while, here are a couple things we think you'll be interested in. First, the Renew Initiative kicks off next weekend. Renew is an invitation to step into an adventure of opening up to God and renewing our hearts, renewing our passions, and renewing the Crosspoint tribe as we continue to help people find their way to God and experience all the grace and goodness He has for them, and for us in the process. It's all of us listening, praying, engaging, and sacrificing above and beyond for a long-term vision and getting a front row seat to see God move in us and through us. It's going to be amazing, and you're invited to participate, and it all starts next weekend. Speaking of amazing, Crosspoint Student Ministries meets Sunday evenings here at the Crosspoint campus from 6 to 7:30 for students 7th through 12th grade. And if you are a junior high or senior high student, or if you remember back to those years, life, well, can be hard at times. You're dealing with friendships, relationships, expectations, the academics. It's a lot. So we're here to help. CSM is a fantastic place for students to connect with friends, develop influential relationships with adult leaders who want them to grow in their faith. And of course, there's a lot of fun too. And last, for all of you March Madness fans out there, mark your calendars for Thursday, March 16th. And yes, this is a public service announcement. This is the start of March Madness. And to celebrate it, we're opening up the Crosspoint Commons for an all-day viewing party, including free Ale Emporium appetizers for the entire day. So join us for the party and hang out all day. You can watch, you can work, or let's be honest, just watch. Enjoy some food and connect with other fans. And then after the Thursday evening early weekend service that evening, we'll cap it off with another March Madness, this time an after party. It's all happening right here, and March will be right around the corner, people. All right, we've got a great service today. If we're honest, we all want to experience more joy and more happiness in our lives. This weekend, we're going to look at how what we do in this space is actually a big part of it. Now, perhaps you've wondered, okay, what's the big deal with singing when I come to church? And why do people get all happy, clappy? And why is the music so darn loud? Well, believe it or not, this is all part of God's intention to not only deposit some joy in your life, but also to sustain joy in your life. There's actually a spiritual dynamic at work here. So before Curt breaks this down for us, let's take a quick look and a laugh at this video from one of our favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze.
The house I was born into, my parents were 23 when I was born, and they rented a home. And then I just talked to them about this, and they said the front door of their home was a sliding glass door. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, how do you even lock it? You can only lock those with a pole. So how do you lock it and then, And I asked them what I'm sure you are thinking. I was like, are you sure you did not live in this home backwards?
Oh, my word, that's funny, right? Are you sure you're not living in this home backwards? Hey, we're going to talk about this. Sometimes as we chase joy in life, sometimes we're going about it backwards. We're actually going about it the wrong way, and so we have to make changes if we want to get all that God has for us. So, man, welcome to Crosspoint. Are you guys excited to be here today? Man, I'm super excited to see you. My name's Curt. If we haven't had a chance to meet, it's great to have you with us here. Let's make some noise for those tuning in online, Crosspoint online, YouTube online. Join us wherever across our city, state, and our world. And if you're here for the first time, super excited you're here. I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about as we wrap this series up. Before we do that, though, just real quick, how about game day last weekend? Did you guys enjoy that? Was that not amazing? And, of course, if you missed it, you can watch at crosspointweb.org, and then right after game day in the Super Bowl, of course, the Colts got a brand new coach. Anybody excited about that? Brand new, yeah, man, I tell you what. I got an email from Colts Nation just saying, hey, here's our new coach. And if you didn't see this, here he is. His name's Coach Shane Steichen. Take a look right here.
What's up, Colts Nation, man? We're fired up to be here. Can't wait to go. Let's freaking go.
Yes, he's like, come on, let's freaking go. Who's ready to freaking go after the football season? I tell you what, we get excited about these things, right? We get excited, even though the football season just ended, we get excited about the potential of what's coming. And I want to talk about this a bit. I mean, I'm actually kind of setting you up on things we get excited about because, there are certain things that we celebrate. There's certain things that we get excited about. We sing, we clap, we cheer, we, do things that just show the joy that we have about things that we experience in life. And we're going to talk about what that means as a part of our experience in this space. So I want to pray for us before we do anything else. Let's do that. God, thank you for the chance to be here today. Thank you that you allow us to have fun, to sing, to laugh, to have endorphins flowing, and God, that you also created us to learn. And so I pray that you'd help us to do that today, learn not only about things about your character, but also perhaps things about ourselves. And I pray these things in your character, Jesus. Amen. So just a couple things today as we get started that I want to kind of connect the dots for you on. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but there is a connection between worship, between celebration and joy. All right, and a moment ago when I was asking about the Colts, I mean, it's like we're cheering, right? We're excited, we're celebrating, we're giving praise. I mean, that's what that really is. And when that happens, there's like a lift in the room. I don't know if you noticed that. And so I want to connect kind of some dots on how when we celebrate, specifically in this space, I mean, there's a spiritual dynamic that begins to take place. In fact, take a look at Psalm 34. It says this, it says, "Magnify the Lord with me, let us exalt his name together." Now, when we sing, when we celebrate, when we cheer, we're actually magnifying. That's what we're doing. We're making something bigger. In that moment, what we're really doing is we're beginning to say, hey, God, we actually recognize you're a really, really big God. And here's why this is so important. Because see, for me, I don't know if your life is this way, but oftentimes when I come into this space at the end of a week, I'm like, I've dealt with a number of problems and challenges and barriers and things I've had to work through. And oftentimes I come into this space and I feel like my problems are really, really big. And sometimes I feel like my God is really, really small. And when we begin to celebrate and praise and talk about how big God is, what ends up happening is I end up leaving being reminded that my God is really, really big and my problems don't seem so big. And so, what this really means is, as we think about, like, what does it mean to experience a full joy? Perhaps for some of us, it's not that we need smaller problems. It's just that we need to be reminded that, man, we have a really big God. And honestly, this has a lot to do with why we sing, why we do some of the things we do in this space. Sometimes we don't even know what to say. It's why we put words on the screens, because, sometimes you're like, I don't even know what to say. And then we see the words, like, that's exactly what I need to say. Now, so when we do that, we kind of magnify God. The second thing, and when I mentioned, the Colts, favorite sports teams, things we get excited about, there's a shout of excitement, and everybody does this, right? I mean, if you're not a sports fan, it might be when you talk about Broadway or when you talk about your favorite TV series. I mean, the reality is we cannot help but express our felt adoration. I mean, whatever that's for. I mean, when you experience something awesome, you're just like, man, I got to tell somebody about it, right? If you've gone to a game with somebody, you while you're there, like, dude, did you see that shot? And could you believe he made that catch? And, maybe you're like, hey, did you see, Ted Lasso's coming out season 3 next month? Did you see season 2? I mean, whatever it is for you, you get really, really excited. Here's another way to think about it. Do you know how you tell if somebody drives a Tesla or not? You actually don't have to worry about it because they're going to tell you about it anyway. All right? They just are. And that's not a slam. It's just that they get really excited. They have a felt adoration for something they're experiencing, so they tell you about it. And, God's kind of like, hey, all those ways you do that out there, I want you to kind of do that for me. There's something that happens not only for me, but there's something that happens in you when you share your life that way. In fact, take a look at what the writer of Hebrews says in Hebrews 13. He says, through Jesus, therefore, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise. Now, this phrase, a sacrifice of praise, what is that? Let me give you a little theology 101 right here. Back in the Old Testament, whenever you come to the temple, the synagogue, you would bring some kind of sacrifice of your grain, of an animal that maybe that you gave up to honor God. And Jesus basically said, hey, when I came, I'm now the perfect lamb, and you don't need to bring sacrifices. I became the sacrifice once and for all. So God's not really looking for us to bring like animals as a sacrifice anymore. He says, what I want you to do is I want you to be the living sacrifice. And so this can mean a lot of different things. He says, I want you to like honor me with the way you live and the way you like bless people. And so, this could be lived out in, for instance, the way you love other people. The way you treat other people, the way you lift other people up, the way you put other people in front of yourself. Another way this can be lived out is the way that we serve others, the way we volunteer, the way we serve with kids or serve coffee or in the band up here, or the ways that we, take care of our neighbor or our friend in need. I mean, these are both ways that Jesus says, hey, this is how you can like bring me a sacrifice and honor me. And then a third way is the way we give. It's when we're generous with our finances. In fact, this is one of the reasons when we say this phrase here, joy box. Yeah, people do that, right? Because people get excited. We say joy box. And we get excited because we're like, oh my gosh, I actually am fueling. It's actually a moment of joy because I'm doing something that's actually honoring God and blessing other people. And so we go, whoa, man, we get excited. And so what I want to do today is I want to kind of coach us on some of the basics of what we do around here and how these things actually are generated and done because God calls us to this, and it actually creates joy in us and sends us out. Why do we sing? Why do we, clap when we sing? Why do some people raise their hands? Like, what's that all about? Why, is the music so darn loud? You may have wondered that. And this all comes back, to God's design for us to experience joy. Now, last spring, I had the chance to be in the studio audience of one of my favorite late night talk show hosts, and it was just a fascinating experience, and I learned some things when I was there. In fact, before the show started, they brought out a comedian, like a warm-up comedian, to just kind of get us laughing and enjoying ourselves. And as a part of that, he actually kind of coached us and said, hey, here's what's going to happen here, and here's how the event's going to go, and here's how the production's going to work. And then the host of the show came out and talked to us, which was just amazing. And I was blown away. I was blown away by how humble he was and how he was like, oh my gosh, you don't realize how much we just are honored that you're here and you actually came to our show. And I'm sitting there like thinking, man, I'm just glad I got a ticket, and here you are like honored that we showed up. And I just thought, man, I hope that when people come to Crossway, I hope you feel that way. I hope when you walk into this space, you realize how honored we are that you just took the time to come. Because, man, there's something about that. And then he just kind of walked through, hey, this is going to happen. And when this happens, if you like it, you can cheer, you can clap. And now, if we get into political things or controversial stuff, don't clap because I don't know if you're for it or against it. It's really awkward and we don't want that. And, you don't want that. You don't want to be on TV for that. And so, but if I've got a guest up here and you like what they're saying, then, cheer them on, man. Like they're going to respond to that. They're going to keep going because they realize you like what, they're saying. And so it was just so helpful because it helped us know how to operate in that setting. So I want to kind of do the same thing. I want to coach us on not like what I'm looking for in this environment, but I really want to coach us on what is God's intention for what happens when we gather here. What is he looking for? Because it's not just what we bring to him. It's actually turns around and actually, benefits us as well. It's a huge, huge effect on our joy. So kind of a disclaimer before I get into this. None of this comes from a place of judgment, just so you know. So if you hear something, you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't do that. I feel so bad about that. That's not the goal. Don't feel that way. I can't tell you how to feel. I'm just telling you that's not the goal. This is all out of encouragement. So the other thing is Crosspoint's like a melting pot. And so, we got people all over the spiritual spectrum. So I realize there's some of us that are exploring, and if that's you and you're like, man, I'm just not there yet, that's totally cool. Others of us, we've been doing this for a while. Some of us had really bad church experiences. Some of us had really good church experiences previously. Some of us had really bad theological church experiences. So some of your expectations aren't even biblical. They're just like the way your church group did it. And so I'm going to try to just help us understand God's intent for why we come together and celebrate and how that leads to more joy. Now, there's 7 different Hebrew words for the word praise, which is another, kind of term for celebrate. Now, I'm going to show you 2 of them, here today, and the first one is one of my favorites. It's this one right here, Tehillah. Take a look at Psalm 34. It says, I will extol the Lord at all times. His Tehillah will be on my lips. Some of you are going, yes, I like that on my lips too. I like some tequila on my lips, which is an entirely different thing, by the way. Tehillah, not tequila. That's good too. And then this other word is the word Hallel, which is where we get the word hallelujah. You probably heard the word hallelujah. And here's what Bible Hub defines Hallel as. It says Hallel is to shine, hence to make a show, to boast, to thus, look at this phrase, to be clamorously foolish. Think about that for a moment. To praise, to rave, to celebrate. When I read these words right here, listen, this sounds more like going to a Colts game than it sounds like going to church, right? Like that's kind of what I feel when I read this. And let me just explain again, like I know some of us are just kind of early in our faith. We're just kind of trying to figure out, is this something I want to be a part of? Is Jesus who he is? We're just glad you're here. But for Jesus followers, for those of us who have said, hey, I'm following Jesus, God calls us to like respond and interact in certain ways. And so at the core, like simple level, when we gather, here's what worship is. Here's what it means. He says worship is simply expressing love to God. That's all it is. It's expressing love to God. Now, some of you perhaps, like me, and I know you're probably not going to believe this every time I talk about this. Some of you are like, yeah, that's not true. You can fact check this with my wife, all right? I am an extreme introvert. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. And so, like, when I see this, if you're like me, sometimes you go, okay, Curt, I'm just more of a reserved person, all right? I kind of like to, this is my tradition growing up. I like to worship God in my heart. That's what I like to do. I'm not going to show it. I just like to worship in my heart. And I just want you to know, first of all, I appreciate that, all right? I can totally get that. And there's times for reverence. I mean, the psalmist says, be still and know that I am God. And, there's definitely times for that. But there also should be moments where, like, we express with our bodies what we're feeling in our hearts. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but our relationship with God, for many of us, it's the only relationship in our entire lives where we try to separate our affection from our expression. I mean, think about this for a moment. I mean, we don't do that in any other relationship. I don't do that with my kids. I don't do that with my spouse, my wife. Even my dog, Minnie. I mean, my kids took this photo of me. They're like, they love when I get down. I'm like giving a bunch of affection and showing affection to our dog. I do that with my dog, right? Last weekend, as we were getting ready for game day, during our rehearsal before the weekend, we were up here on the stage and the lights were on, and somebody walked in the back and just kind of sat down, and I saw him walk in. I couldn't tell who it was. It was odd because, we were closed, building wasn't open, and they just sat back there like they were supposed to be here. And so when the team got done rehearsing, we kind of dismissed, and this guy came walking up to me, and I realized there's a student from 30 years ago in my student ministry that happened to be in town from Texas. And he's got a special place in my heart. He was the first kid that came to Christ under my student ministry, first kid I baptized. I did his wedding, about 10, 12 years ago in Hawaii, of all places. Amazing time. I've just been able to be a part of a lot of significant moments in his life. And one of our commentators, Scott, he said to me, he said, Curt, man, when I saw you walk up to him, I knew he was someone special because the inflection in your voice changed. And of course, I went up and gave him a big hug, and you were like patting each other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's good to see you. Why is it? Just ask yourself, why is it sometimes in our relationship with God, we want to separate our affection from our expression? Now, let me talk to the guys for just a moment, because women get this a little better. Women, you're a little faster to, like, close the gap on this. But guys, I know for some of us, you're just like, Curt, I don't know, man. I don't know that I can do that. Listen, you do this all the time. All right? Like, for instance, guys, if your wife came to you and it was just like, honey, I'm really sorry. It's nothing personal, but like I just don't see the need to like do sex anymore. It's like really overrated, but it's okay. I just want you to know I have affection for you in my heart. Like it's gonna be okay. You would be like, shut the front door, like back the bus up. I would be getting emails for counseling referrals the moment that statement was made. I mean, you'd be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What happened, right? And you'd probably say, honey, like, I can respect that, but my word, I just need every now and then for your body to, like, show what your heart's feeling, all right? So, like, we get this. And so God's kind of like, I just kind of want you to do the same. In fact, Jesus talked about this one time. Luke chapter 10, he said, love the Lord your God with all of your heart. That's kind of the emotional part of us. He said, with all of your soul. That's the spiritual part of us. And he went on, he said, with all of your strength, that's the physical, like let your body, exhibit what your heart's feeling. He said, this is only fitting. In fact, take a look at Psalm 147. 147 says, how good is it to sing praises to our God? How pleasant and fitting. How fitting is it to praise God because of what he's done for us? See, what he's saying is, man, if God would have just done us like a tiny little favor, it might be fitting to, just stand here with our hands in our pocket and give a nice little golf clap at the end of a song, right? But listen, Jesus didn't do like a small favor. No, I mean, he gave his life for us. He actually rose from the grave, and when you receive that, like, you get all of his goodness, and your name's written into eternity. I mean, he's like a song of praise. I mean, kind of letting him know, like, he's like, that's just fitting, like a fitting expression. And so, of course, the question is, okay, so like, how do we do this? What does this look like? What's God looking for? Well, there's a couple things. I want to just run through these real quick. Number one, God, he actually commands us to sing. Believe it or not, that's a command. It's a command for your own good. Oftentimes, commands are like actually for our benefit. Take a look at Psalm 95. He says, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make and look at the phrase right here, a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. All right, now, when you hear that, I know some of you are going, yeah, Curt, I'm just not like really into the singing, man, I can't sing. That is totally cool. I get it, man. He didn't say it had to be beautiful. He just said you need to make a noise. All right? He just said, and listen, we're going to push the sound system up, and it's going to cover you up, so you don't even need to worry about it, all right? Like, nobody's even going to hear you. He just said, I just want to hear something joyful from you. Now, some of us, we stand here, and we're like, darkness trembles, mountains quake, what was dead and come. Listen, you're never going to hear me singing very much. My kids are going to die when they hear this, so enjoy this for a moment, all right? Every captive breaking free right now. Sometimes we're just like, we're just standing here, and it's like, come on, that's a little weird, in fact, when you think about what you're singing right there. He's like, make a joyful noise. If you're happy to know it, let your face know. Like, help your face show what you're feeling. In fact, here's an idea. How about we rebrand, we be the tribe that rebrands RBF? How about that? All right? Instead of, how about we make it resting blessed face? How about that? Like, we're just going to let our face, like, show what our heart's feeling. God says, I want you to sing, not only because it does something for me, but it does something in your spirit. And the second thing he commands us to do is he commands us to cheer. Take a look here at Psalm 47. He says, clap your hands, all you people, shout to God with, look at this, loud songs of joy. Now, if you've ever walked in here like, dang, why is the music so stinking loud? This is it right here. God says, that's how I like it. He's like, I want to hear a loud noise. I want to hear loud songs. Another one of our favorites right here, Psalm 71:23. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praises to you. Why in the world would I do that? Because it's I whom you've redeemed. God says, man, that's a great reason to cheer. There's a song we sing around here that, goes like this. It says, I was buried beneath my shame. I was breathing, but not alive. See, this is why you don't want me to sing in front of you very often. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name. And we get to the resurrection part, and I'm not like a real huge expressive person, and my fist is like, and I ran out of that grave, right? It's like you just get pulled into it because of what that says right there. Now, why do we do that? Why do people in this room at times, like, when we get to that moment, just put a hand in the air? You know why? Because cheering is the natural response to victory. Think about this for a moment. Anybody ever been to the Indy 500? Just out of curiosity, you guys been to the 500? Yeah, okay. When those drivers are coming around the last lap, if your driver's in the lead, what are you doing? You're like, both fists in the air, right? You are like, yes. I mean, it's like clockwork in the stands. Right? Here's what you're not doing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on that last lap. You're not going, boy, I'm celebrating in my heart. He did well. Woo. We're not doing that. Because cheering, it's the natural response. Kind of like we're always saying, hey, let's make some noise for this, because it's a natural response to winning. I know some of us hear that, and you're like, Curt, I don't know, man. Clapping in church, I just didn't grow up that way. It's not my personality. I get it. I didn't grow up that way either. I'm a third generation, pastor's kid. I mean, listen, I didn't grow up with that way. And I know sometimes you're like, well, Curt, you're the pastor. I mean, of course you're going to feel this way. Can I coach you on this for a moment? Can I just kind of connect some dots here? Here's the crazy thing about faith. The blessings of God usually follow obedience. All right, God says, I want you to sing. I want you to make a loud noise. The blessings of God follow obedience. Now, here's what that means. You're not going to feel like serving somebody, serving on a team, volunteering, until you get on a team and start doing it. I mean, we talk it ad nauseum around here. Hey, we got volunteer opportunities, join a team. We have a person here, join a team, person there. Listen, I think we have like 25 open slots for volunteers just to make sure we're serving the people we're serving that are walking our doors every week. And I hear people go, well, I just don't feel like it. You know why you don't feel like it? It's because you're not doing it. When you step in and you begin doing it, guess what? You go, oh my gosh, I had no idea the impact that my time was going to make on this kid when I'm sitting on the floor in Upstreet and he's beginning to understand what it means to know Jesus. And you're like, I love this, because blessings follow obedience. I mean, the same is true, when we talk about, giving financially, all right? You don't really want to give financially until you actually give financially. And when you become a percentage giver, you begin going, oh my gosh, you see the impact of what my gifts are doing and how they're affecting people and how people's lives are being changed and they're seeing who God is. And you're like, oh my gosh, I love this. It's why when we say Joy Box, people are like, woo, yes, because we get excited about what the result is, but it's the blessings on that come after we do the obedience. Next weekend, as you heard a bit ago, we're going to start this brand new initiative, 5 weeks, called Renew. And this is really going to be a 5-week journey on renewing our hearts, on renewing our passions, on renewing, our church, our tribe, around the mission that God's called us to. How do we continue to help people find their way to God? And I'm telling you what, I just hope you'll commit to being here each of the 5 weeks. I mean, it's one of our next steps today. Every one of the 5 weeks, if you can't make it in person, join us online. Because I just think God's going to do something as we commit ourselves to renewing ourselves, continuing to open our hearts up to what God wants to do in us and then through us. And I'm telling you, there's something that happens when we do that, and there's blessings that come, but it only comes after we take the steps of obedience. See, worship's the same way. I often don't feel like worshiping until I actually start worshiping. Until I start celebrating, I actually get in a posture, I'm like, all right, this is good. God, I'm excited about what you're doing. And then I begin to feel a sense of, oh my gosh, I'm seeing God. I mean, let me tell you, I hardly ever walk out of here not encouraged when I walk out of here. And we see this over and over through the Old and New Testament. That God doesn't move oftentimes until we take the move. It's the pattern. I mean, we look back at Moses in the Old Testament, and we see him leading the nation of Israel, out of slavery in Egypt, and it's not until he stretches out his arm over the water, over the Red Sea, that then the water begins to part. When that same group of people gets to, the promised land 40 years later, and they're actually walking through the valley, getting ready to go through the Jordan River, which is at flood stage, by the way, at that moment, and they're getting ready to go into this land God's been preparing them for. It wasn't until they actually stepped onto the water that the waters parted so they could go into the promised land. And we see in the life of Jesus, with the 10 lepers that Jesus encounters in this one incident, Luke tells us about how they come to him and they want to be cleansed of this physical, disease that they have. And Jesus says, okay, here's what I want you to do. He has the power to heal them right there, but he doesn't. He says, I want you to go to the priest and show yourself to the priest. And Luke tells us it's actually as they begin to turn and make their way to the priest, as they go, they are healed of their physical disease. See, our steps of faith actually activate God's power in our lives. When we move in his direction, it's almost like God goes, oh, there's somebody right there that, man, they're following me. I want to put some wind in their sails. I want to get behind what they're doing right there. And then this third one right here, God commands us, and this is where some of us are like, God commands us to lift up our hands. God commands us to lift up our hands. I know some of us, you're like, okay, that's a little weird. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't either. This is probably the most challenging for me. And yet, I know some of us are like, it's just all manufactured hype. And listen, that's not at all what God's talking about right here. Let me explain this. Look at Psalm 63. Psalmist says, I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. Now, why do we lift up our hands? There's 3 ways that we can do this. When you see people lifting up their hands, what are they usually doing? Usually celebrating, right? I mean, usually, and let me just tell you that if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're somebody who knows God, experiencing his grace, listen, you're already a winner, all right? You're like #winning, all right? Why is it that the church is the only place where a whole bunch of people who are winning walk around like they're defeated? Have you ever wondered that? See, we do this all the time. I remember watching the Masters a couple years ago, 2019, I think. Tigers putting on the 18th green for the win. Man, that putt drops in the hole. What does every person, what do they do? What's the response in the gallery? Every single dude in the gallery is like this, hands in the air. It's like, yes, we won. All right, if you've been down at a Colts game, you've seen Jonathan Taylor break a hole and, head into the end zone. Guess what? Every single fan is like, oh my gosh, yes, we're winning. I mean, this is what we do. It's how we celebrate. And then the second thing we do is we lift our hands when we testify. I mean, this is usually in a court of law, right? I mean, if you've been asked to testify, you'll be asked to raise your right hand. And, it's kind of an affirmation that what I'm about to say is actually true. Sometimes in our services, you'll see somebody, and some of you, this is very normal. Like you were trained in this way. You have your hands up, or you'll put your hand up for a moment, and you're testifying. You're saying, yes, that's absolutely what we're singing right there. I mean, we sing like, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Some of you are like, yes, I didn't even know. But those words I saw on the screen, yes, I can attest. That's exactly what God's been to me. He's made a way. He's been a miracle worker. He has actually been the light in my darkness. And then this last one, we put our hands up to what? Surrender. And this is like the international, symbol of surrender, right? Doesn't matter what language or what country you're from. I mean, if somebody points a gun, at you, you're immediately the response is hands up, all right? I'm instinctively, I'm not going to resist. And, for some of us, a different posture of surrender might be just hands open in front of me. That's another posture of surrender. Just, God, I'm here. I'm not resisting. I'm open for whatever you have for me. In fact, a lot of times when I'm sitting down here, in the front, I'm clapping and, worshiping, and I'll just have a moment where I'll just pause and say, okay, God, I just want you, I'm open to whatever you want to do for me and with this people. Help me to be humble and confident, as I stand up and communicate. And now let me get real practical for a moment. Just because God says, hey, here's how I want you to worship me, doesn't mean you have to do it like all the time during the whole service. You might just have moments where you're like, yes, I connect with that. You might be bringing energy and just I'm making a loud noise. There might be moments where like, God, I just need to surrender. I need to surrender if that's comfortable, or I need to just have my hands open because I'm open, God, to whatever you're wanting to do. The point is, man, when we gather, he wants us to allow our body to express what our heart is feeling. Now, I know for some of us, you're hearing this and you're like, Curt, yeah, like it's just not my thing, man. And I know you're trying to help me, and but it's just not my thing. Can I just be like really blunt for a moment? Perhaps it's not all about you. Like perhaps everything's not all about you. Let me share with you a few things that perhaps you've never thought about before. You realize that when we worship God the way he designed us to worship, with energy and just excitement and a smile, and do you realize that this actually encourages other Jesus followers? I mean, check out Ephesians 5. The Apostle Paul, he says, be filled with the Spirit, addressing, and who are we addressing right here? What's he say? One another. He says, addressing one another, and how are we going to do it? In psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing, making melody with the Lord in your heart. All right? Now, you probably don't know this, but, every single week when I'm standing down here, I call this the bullpen right down here where we kind of, the people on platforms sit. There's moments when I'm standing down here and I'm worshiping, singing, and, bringing energy and excited and singing loud. I mean, it's not always good. It's not beautiful, but it's loud. And I tell you what, there's moments where I all of a sudden start thinking about what I'm going to say, and, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. I start having these bad thoughts, and gosh, I'm probably going to get fired. It's going to be so bad. They're going to let me go after this one. And all of a sudden, I'll hear people singing around me, maybe something like this, you're never gonna let me go, you're never gonna let me down, you are good. And I'll hear the energy, and sometimes if I don't feel that or sense that, I may stay in that place, but when I hear people around me start going, yes, there's a God and he's not gonna let us down, it pulls me back in, and I go, oh my gosh, all right, let's do this. All right, it lifts me up. It actually encourages, it's like it deposits faith in my heart. Now, I don't know if you realize that this can actually happen. Did you know that you can actually borrow faith? That it's actually possible to borrow faith. Every single week, There's people that walk into our spaces that join us online, and when you join us, man, your marriage is on the edge of like falling apart. There are people that join us every single week that they're dealing with an addiction that they just can't get free of. People that are dealing with a depression they can't get out from under. I mean, everything in their life, they just feel like it's coming to an end. And yet when they sit and stand and they feel the energy and the excitement of a gathered people talking about this big God that's bigger than their problems, it actually deposits faith in them, in their heart. I mean, for me, when I hear, words like this, your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like the fire. I mean, when I hear those words, man, I'm like, yes. I mean, if I'm feeling a little depleted, listen, that builds me up when I hear that. It builds me up. I can borrow faith from others. Second thing that happens is when we worship this way, it actually helps guests and encourages people who are spiritually seeking. Think about this. Take a look at what Paul says in 1 Corinthians, his first letter to the Corinthians. He says, but if all prophesy, to prophesy means to proclaim, to say, hey, this is my experience. If all prophesy and an unbeliever or outsider enters, he's convicted by all. He's called to account by all. The secrets of his heart are disclosed, not to everybody, but in his heart. And so falling on his face, he will worship God and declare that God is really among you. And what this means is when we get excited about what we're doing, about what God's done in us, it can actually encourage people far from God. It can help them see that, this God that I'm trying to figure out if he's actually real or not, this is showing me these people actually really believe that that's true. And listen, I can't tell you how many conversations I have on a regular basis with people that come in here for the first time, second time. They'll say, man, I've been here 3 times. Every single time I'm here, I just have tears streaming down my face. I don't know why. And I know why. I mean, really 2 reasons. One is because God uniquely meets them where they are. But then the second reason is they begin to feel and see something in other people that they long for themselves. They just don't know what it is. This is exactly what Paul's talking about right here. Years ago, when we first got into this building, I got an email from a lady, and some of you have heard this, and I just think it's important for all of us to be aware because it really affects why we do what we do around here. She told me, she said, hey, I've been to your church, for the last 3 weeks, but I haven't been inside yet. And then she went on to talk about how she, just sits in our parking lot and would just watch people exit our building. And she wanted to know, when people leave this place, do they look happy? Do they look like they're built up ready for the week, or do they just kind of walk out defeated? And then she went on and told me why and all her bad church experiences and why she's really needing a place that built her up. And then at the very end, she said, you just need to know that this week I showed up for the 4th time and I actually walked in because of what I saw. And I thought, oh my gosh. She was encouraged simply because she's seeing people, with a joy as they walk out of here. Let me ask you, does your worship give evidence that you're winning, or does it give evidence that you're defeated? See, I think God wants, he wants us to just express our heart, what's going on in our heart in a way that with our body. Now, here's what we're going to do as we wrap up. I'm going to land this. We're going to practice this, all right? So I want you to go ahead and stand with me. And what we're going to do is, if you came from my background, you're just like, I worship God in my heart. That's how I kind of grew up. And you may be new here, and you're like, I'm not sure, Curt. I'm new to faith. I'm not even sure I have a faith yet. That's totally cool. We're glad you're here. You may not be here yet. Listen, when we started Crosspoint 16 years ago, one thing among many others that we said we want to do different is we want people to walk out of here encouraged. We're not doing any of this reflective crap at the end, we're going to walk out under every once in a great while. But usually, man, we're going to send you out with energy, with hope. We want to feel the energy. I want your body to be kind of feeling that God is bigger than your problems. And I want you to walk out with that kind of encouragement. So we're going to have a chance to practice this, all right? And you're like, practice? I'm like, yes, practice. That's what we're talking. We're talking about practice, all right? And so you're going to have the chance to express to God with our bodies. I mean, what we're feeling in our hearts, all right? And I know some of us, you're like, Curt, I'm just not quite there. Listen, if you're still exploring God, if you're trying to figure out if you're in on this thing, I totally get that. But understand, if you're somebody who's following Jesus, all right, if you're somebody who's a person of faith, God commands this, not only because it brings honor and praise to him, but it does something in your spirit. It increases your joy factor. All right, he's not like, I get all crazy. He's just like, I want you to celebrate outwardly what you're feeling in your heart. So all I want to do is I want to ask you to take the next step. Would you just take one next step, and we're all at different places, one next step based on where I am right now. So for you, maybe you're somebody who's like, man, I take my coffee, but I don't sing. I mean, you just stand here and you listen. Maybe today's the day you're going to sing. All right, maybe for you're the person who, we need to rebrand RBF. All right, maybe today's the day you're like, I'm going to smile. I'm going to become resting, blessed face, and I'm going to like show outwardly what I'm feeling on the inside. Perhaps you're a person who, like, you've just never, like, let your body express what you're feeling in your heart, whether that's clapping your heart out or, putting your hands up or just, putting a fist, whatever that is for you. Again, the goal is, how do we let God know, hey, I'm excited about what you're doing and I want to express that with my body. All right, so we're going to do this. I'm telling you, the blessings come after we follow in obedience. So come on, let's go. Let's practice this. Here we go.
Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Heaven on earth, right here, right now, Jesus, pour out heaven on earth, so big, so close, so fat, so close, stuck in black and white. But it looked like color to me. Didn't think life could ever get better. Didn't dream in eternity. But you took me to a place where my soul had never been. And you opened up my heart, and you poured your spirit in. Heaven on earth, right here, right now, Jesus, pour out heaven on earth. Walking through this space, life is still as crazy to me, but I'm feeling better than I ever felt before I knew your peace. Gonna run into the night, gonna raise a fishing bell, gonna rally all my friends, and we'll storm the gates of hell, singing heaven on earth, heaven on earth, right here, right now, Jesus, pour out heaven on earth. Heaven on earth, so real, so close. I'm so glad my soul knows heaven on earth. let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Come on. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Heaven on earth, heaven on earth, right here, right now, Jesus, pour out heaven on earth, so real, so close, I'm so glad, my soul knows it, heaven on earth. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close until it floods our soul. Let's go to the point we let go and feel heaven so close till it floods our soul.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you're encouraged and able to see and believe that there's a God who's bigger than your problems as you go and tackle your week. Now, if you'd like someone to pray with you today, simply text the keyword "need prayer" to 317-834-7373, and a member of our prayer team will be in touch with you today. And if you like what you experienced today and you'd like to donate, you can do so on the online Joy Box by going to the Give button at the top of the screen and make a donation. And know that when you make a donation, it fuels things like this online experience that's bringing joy and hope and changing lives all around the city, state, and country. So thank you. And know that you're a part of helping make that plan happen. Next week, we're kicking off the Renew Initiative. See you then. Have a fantastic week.